So I'm 32, my husband is 33, and this is the story of how I found out he's bi before he ever told me, because I snooped. Yeah, we're starting with me being the bad guy. For context, my name's Lily and my husband's name is Mark. We've been together 8 years, married for 5, living in a little townhouse just outside Portland with too many plants and a cat that hates both of us equally. Up until a few months ago, I would have described our marriage as solid bordering on boring in a good way. We do Sunday pancakes, argue about whose turn it is to unload the dishwasher, send each other stupid memes during work, nothing dramatic. Then, around the start of this year, Mark started acting off. Nothing huge. Just tiny things that didn't match the man I knew. He'd pull his phone closer when a notification popped up. He started taking it with him everywhere, even to shower, which he never used to do. Some nights he'd be on the couch, scrolling, smiling at something, and if I walked into the room, he'd lock the screen a little too fast. You know that feeling when your gut whispers, something's different, but you don't have proof? That was me. My brain went straight to the classic answers. Is he cheating? Is he talking to someone else? Is he mad at me and not saying it? I asked him a few times if everything was okay, and he'd say, yeah, just tired, or work email, nothing important, and change the subject. And then one night I did the thing I'm not proud of. He fell asleep on the couch with his phone still in his hand. We'd been watching some crime show. He was out cold. I turned off the TV, and instead of waking him up like a normal person, I just stared at his phone. I wish I could say I agonized over it for half an hour, but honestly, I wrestled with it for about 30 seconds. Then I very gently eased the phone out of his hand, held my breath, and put my thumb on the screen. We share a fingerprint lock because we're lazy and use each other's phones for Spotify and Google Maps all the time, so it opened immediately. No barrier, just boom, his whole digital life in my hand. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. I told myself, just check messages quickly, make sure there's no affair, then you can relax. As if snooping could ever lead to relaxing, I opened his messages. Nothing weird. Group chats with his friends, memes, stuff about fantasy football. I checked his email. Nothing. I started to feel a little ridiculous. Then I saw a separate browser app that he never uses. Not the regular one we always share. A different one, tucked into a folder. That's where I found it. There were search histories about bisexuality, about men married to women who are attracted to men and women, a couple of bookmarked forum threads, and some, let's just say very specifically curated videos featuring men. It felt like the floor tilted. My first reaction was not, oh, cool, my husband's bi. It was way messier than that. It was a hit straight to every insecurity I didn't even realize I had. Am I not enough? Is he secretly gay and settling for me? Has our whole marriage been a lie? I closed everything as quietly as I could, put the phone back in his hand, and went to the bathroom so I could have a silent freakout on the cold tile. The next week was rough. I'd be making coffee, and my brain would just flash images of what I'd seen. Every time he texted or smiled at his phone, I'd wonder who or what he was looking at. I started overanalyzing every interaction. The way he compliments male actors, the way he hugs his friends. It was like finding a puzzle piece and suddenly trying to reinterpret the entire picture. But I also felt gross, because I wasn't supposed to know any of this. I didn't find out because he trusted me enough to tell me. I stole it. So I did what any anxious millennial does. I went online and researched. I fell down a rabbit hole of articles and personal stories about bisexuality, especially about bi men. And wow, there are so many stereotypes out there that I didn't realize I had internalized. Bi men are just gay in denial. Bi people can't be faithful. If your husband looks at guys, he's going to leave. It was a lot. But there were also stories of straight women married to bi men who were happy, monogamous, and fine. There were discussions about how common it is for people to hide their attraction because of stigma, especially men. And there was one piece of advice I kept seeing over and over. Don't make their coming out about you. Let them do it on their own terms. At the same time, my emotions were screaming, tell him you know, ask him what this means, demand answers. It took everything in me not to blurt it out the next time we were stuck in traffic together. I ended up writing into a relationship advice forum, anonymously, obviously, just to get perspective. The responses were surprisingly compassionate. A lot of people pointed out that orientation doesn't automatically equal action, that attraction to more than one gender doesn't mean he loves me any less. Pretty much everyone agreed on one thing. However, I eventually brought it up. It needed to be done gently and with lots of room for him to feel safe. And a lot of them said, if you can stand it, give him space to process. Don't force this out of him because you're anxious. So that's what I decided to try. Instead of confronting him immediately, I was going to focus on being a person it felt safe to come out to. Step 1. I worked on my own attitude. I realized, embarrassingly, that it was easier for me to say, love is love, about strangers than it was to apply that to my own marriage. So I read, a lot, blogs by bi people, books about queerness, podcasts. I started making a conscious effort to challenge those little knee-jerk reactions in my head. Step 2. I tried to be quietly, casually supportive of LGBTQ+ stuff in our everyday life, without making it a flashing neon sign like, hey, you can tell me your secrets. We'd be watching a show and a queer couple would come on and I'd say something like, I love them, they're so cute. When Pride Month ads started popping up, I'd talk about how cool it was that things have changed, how much I admired people coming out later in life. I bought a t-shirt from a local queer-owned bookstore and wore it around the house. I didn't know if he noticed, but I hoped he did. The weird twist in all this was that Mark had absolutely no idea I was going through an internal crisis. From his point of view, I was just slightly clingier and weirder than usual. I'd start to say something and then stop, my eyes probably all intense, and he'd be like, what? And I'd say, nothing, just tired, which I realize now is exactly what he'd been doing to me. Then the universe handed me a gift in the form of our friend Anna. Anna is one of Mark's oldest friends from college. She's loud, hilarious, works in graphic design, and has always been very rainbow ally, but had never labeled herself openly. We follow each other on Instagram, and on June 1st, literally the first day of Pride Month, she posted a picture of herself with a little bi flag filter and this long caption about finally coming out as bisexual in her 30s. I remember sitting there with my phone, reading it, feeling something in my chest crack open a little. I left this big, heartfelt comment congratulating her, saying how proud I was of her for sharing and that I was always in her corner. It wasn't a performance. I meant every word, but I was also very aware that Mark could see my comment if he looked. About an hour later, Anna DM'd me and was like, hey, thanks for that. It meant a lot. We started chatting and she said, you and Mark should come over for dinner sometime soon. I'd love to catch up. We planned a dinner for that weekend. And in that chat, she thanked me again for being so supportive and said something like, it's still scary to say this stuff out loud. That gave me an opening to respond in a more personal way than just a public comment. I wrote back, yeah, I can only imagine. I've been trying to do better about really listening to people's stories and not making their identity about me. I'm glad you trusted us enough to share. It wasn't about Mark specifically, but it was me practicing being the person I wanted to be in this situation. When we went over to Anna's for dinner, I noticed Mark was quieter than usual. At one point, Anna brought up her post and talked about how long it took her to feel safe saying anything. She joked, you'd think in our 30s we'd be over the drama, but apparently not. I watched Mark out of the corner of my eye. He smiled and nodded, but his jaw was a little tight. He said, I think it's awesome you said something. I know it takes guts, and then changed the subject. So yeah, he was definitely swirling. About a week after that, it happened. We'd had a pretty normal day. Grocery shopping, laundry, that kind of domestic glamour. That night, we were in bed. I was scrolling on my phone. He was lying on his back staring at the ceiling, clearly not asleep. Lily? He said suddenly. Yeah? Can we talk about something kind of big? My stomach dropped, and I'm sure my voice came out way too bright when I said, sure. He rolled onto his side to face me, and I could see he was nervous. Not, I cheated on you, sick, but definitely, I'm about to say a very important thing. There's something I've been wanting to tell you, he said. I've been putting it off because I didn't want to make things weird. I forced myself to just look at him and not fill the silence. Every instinct in me wanted to blurt out, I already know. But all those articles about letting people own their story were replaying in my brain like a warning siren. He took a breath. I'm bisexual. He said it like he was stepping off a cliff. His eyes searched my face, waiting for impact. In that moment, all the anxiety, all the snooping guilt, all the what-ifs kind of melted into one clear feeling. I love this man. That's it. That's the headline. I reached for his hand. Thank you for telling me, I said. Are you okay? He blinked, like he hadn't rehearsed me asking how he felt. I mean, I'm scared, he admitted. I don't want you to think this changes anything. I'm not going anywhere. I'm tired of pretending that part of me doesn't exist. I squeezed his fingers. Nothing has to change if you don't want it to, I said. You're still you. You're still the person I married. I love you. He let out this long exhale of relief I think he'd been bracing for. Are you leaving me? Were you lying this whole time? Or some kind of meltdown? We talked for a long time. He told me he'd known in one way or another since he was a teenager, but had shoved it down because it felt easier to just be straight. He said he'd been reading and researching because Anna's coming out had made him realize he wanted that honesty too, at least with me. At one point, he said, I promise this doesn't mean I've been cheating or that I'm planning to. I just didn't want to hide this from you anymore. I said, attraction isn't a promise to act, right? So I get it. I have crushes on celebrities and I'm not leaving you for Pedro Pascal. He laughed, which broke the tension. We made a few dumb jokes. The heavy feeling in the room started to lift. I could see his shoulders relax in real time. I did not tell him right then that I'd already known for weeks. It didn't feel like the moment to add, by the way, I invaded your privacy. But the guilt didn't go anywhere. It just parked itself behind my ribs and waited. A couple nights later, we were lying in bed again, the lights off, and he said very quietly, Can I ask you something? Yeah. Did you already know before I said anything? My heart lurched. For a split second, I considered lying. I could blame it on vibes, on intuition, but the idea of building the new honest us on a lie felt worse than telling the truth I swallowed. Yeah, I said. I did. Silence. How? He asked. I saw some stuff on your phone, I admitted, voice shaking. A few weeks ago, you fell asleep with it, and I snooped. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. It was a massive violation of your privacy, and I hate that I did it. I could feel tears starting. I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling in the dark, words tumbling out in a rush. I freaked out, I said. I thought maybe you were cheating or hiding something awful, and when I saw those searches, I didn't handle it well. I got insecure and weird, and I should have just trusted you enough to wait, or at least given you a chance to tell me yourself. You didn't do anything wrong. I did. He was quiet long enough that my brain started writing disaster endings. Then he sighed. I'm upset you went through my phone, he said. I won't pretend I'm not. It makes me feel like you don't trust me. I know, I said immediately. You have every right to be mad. But, he added, I also get why you were worried. And I know I changed my behavior. I was being secretive and jumpy and basically waving a flag that said, I'm hiding something. So I'm sorry for that part. It probably messed with your head. That almost made me cry harder. You don't have to apologize, I sniffed. You're allowed to take your time figuring stuff out. He reached for my hand in the dark. Yeah, but we're married, he said. I shouldn't have made you feel like I was pulling away without an explanation, even if I wasn't ready to say the full thing yet. We talked about boundaries for a while, about phones, privacy, trust. We agreed that we both wanted to be the kind of couple who could leave their phones anywhere without the other feeling tempted to snoop, not because we had something to hide, but because we respect each other's inner lives. I told him that finding those searches had poked directly at this old insecurity of mine, that I'm somehow not enough, that any sign of him wanting something else means I'm failing. Saying that out loud made me realize how unfair that is to both of us. He squeezed my hand. You are enough, he said. This isn't about you lacking anything. It's just who I am. There was something strangely freeing about hearing that. Like, okay, this isn't a problem to solve by being hotter or more interesting. This is just a facet of the person I already chose. Since then, honestly, things have been good, better than before in some ways. Mark is lighter. That's the best word I have for it. There's this ease about him now that wasn't there when he was half hiding himself. He jokes more. He's more affectionate. He doesn't flinch when Anna talks about queer stuff anymore. He joins in. Sometimes he'll say something small, like, "Oh, he's cute," about an actor, then glance at me to see my reaction. I just roll my eyes and say, "Stay in your lane, Thompson, that one's mine," and we laugh. We haven't suddenly opened our marriage or started planning threesomes or anything wild. We're still monogamous. We're still us. The only real difference is that there's one less secret in the room. Do I still sometimes feel a little pang when he mentions a male celebrity crush? Yeah. Old insecurities don't just evaporate, but now we talk about it. If I'm feeling weird, I say so, and he reassures me. And when he's feeling vulnerable about how people would react if they knew, I'm there to remind him that he's valid exactly as he is. If you're watching this because you snooped and found out something huge about your partner, first of all, I get it. Your brain is probably in 50 knots. I'm not going to sit here and pretend snooping is okay. It's not. But I'll also say, you're not the devil. You were scared. You reacted. Now, the hard part is what you do next. What I learned from this whole mess is that orientation is not the enemy. Secrecy is. Shame is. I thought the scary thing was the word bisexual. It turns out the scary thing was us living in the same house with this giant unspoken truth between us, both of us walking on eggshells. Now, he's bi. I know. He knows I know. We're figuring it out together. And that feels a lot less terrifying than being alone with my imagination. So, yeah, my husband came out. I admitted I'd found out the worst possible way. We cried, we apologized, we set new boundaries. And at the end of all of that, we're still here, sharing a Netflix account and arguing over whose turn it is to scoop the litter box. It's not a movie plot twist, it's just real life, a little messier and queerer than I expected. And honestly, I wouldn't trade him or our marriage for anything.